Take your seat and maybe you can pay attention because as is customary at events such as these, we need to know what to do in the event of an emergency. So we will just ask the sound engineer. I hope you all got all that. We have a few more house announcements before we get things going. Remember, all cell phones, ladies and gentlemen, silent or vibrate. The event agenda can be viewed on either one of the screens at the front of the ballroom. We have an interactive element to our event using the Mentimeter app. As such, Hilton's Wi-Fi code and the Mentimeter code are displayed on the screens for use. And lastly, this event is being streamed live on National Energy's YouTube channel and Facebook page, so we welcome viewers there as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the playing of the national anthem of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you. Please be seated. We acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, the Honorable Penelope Beckles, Minister of Planning and Development, Dean and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Chairman and members of the Board of Directors of National Energy, Dr. Vernon Peltu, President, National Energy, Ms. Karina Corburn, Country Head of the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, in Trinidad and Tobago, NGC Group Presidents, other specially invited guests, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of National Energy and IDB, good morning and welcome to this morning's launch of the Roadmap for a Green Hydrogen Economy in Trinidad and Tobago. My name is Adrian Don Mora, and it is a distinct honor to be your Master of Ceremonies for this momentous occasion. As most of you are aware, our energy sector is transitioning. To support this transition, National Energy is leading a number of key initiatives on behalf of the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. One of these initiatives is the development of this roadmap for a green hydrogen economy in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, to officially welcome you to this morning's launch, it's an honor to invite Dr. Vernon Paltu, President of National Energy, to the podium.
The Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister. The Honorable Penelope Beckles-Robinson, Minister of Planning and Development. Dean and members of the Diplomatic Corps. Chairman and members of the Board of Directors of National Energy. Ms. Karina Coburn, Country Head of the Inter-American Development Bank in Trinidad and Tobago. NGC Group Presidents, other specially invited guests, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to the launch of the Green Hydrogen Roadmap, a roadmap to support Trinidad and Tobago's energy transition and accelerate our goal towards a decarbonized future. This particular journey started close to 2 years ago with the IDB's approval of a technical cooperation agreement for the promotion of a green hydrogen market in Latin America and the Caribbean. Several months later, KBR was selected to work with the IDB and National Energy to initiate phase 1 of this technical cooperation through the commencement of this study. This morning, we are indeed proud to present the roadmap to green hydrogen development, which represents a summary findings of the detailed study that will be published in 2023 after completion of IDB's internal review process. The roadmap outlines a pathway for the future positioning of Trinidad and Tobago as a green hydrogen hub for the region, while still understanding the important role of natural gas as a transition fuel. Today, we commemorate this achievement, an achievement that brought together several arms of the public and private sector, all working together towards the common objective of transitioning Trinidad and Tobago's energy-based economy towards a sustainable and low-carbon future. The roadmap was the epitome of a cooperative and collaborative approach, as many key sectorial stakeholders were engaged for feedback along the way. At this juncture, I would like to take the opportunity to express my gratitude to all those who have brought us to this point. We could not have achieved this milestone without the support of the hard-working project teams. As such, I commend the members of the Sustainable Energy Development Team at National Energy for your diligence in ensuring all deadlines were met, together with the dedicated staff from the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. I'm also grateful to the members of the IDB and KBR teams for their guidance, engagement, and professionalism throughout this process. As always, National Energy is thankful for the support of the Government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago as we continue to work towards fulfilling our mandate of conceptualizing, promoting, facilitating, and developing sustainable energy-based industries. In this regard, I would particularly like to thank the Honorable Minister of Energy and Energy Industry for his visionary leadership on this significant step forward for our country. I would also like to thank the Honorable Minister of Planning and Development and your respective staff, Minister, for your influence and invaluable support throughout this process. Your presence today most certainly highlights the significance of this study for the sector and the country. In closing, I'd like to emphasize that the outcome of this work positions Trinidad and Tobago to be a global player in a challenging and exciting journey. This journey starts with the establishment of a strong foundation supported with the relevant enabling policies, and the continued participation and collaboration among all stakeholders, many of whom are gathered here this morning. As a state agency, National Energy will continue to play its role in shaping the future of our local and regional sectors. Our enduring commitment to secure a sustainable and more resilient energy sector and economy for our country is what brought us here today. And we are quite confident that together, this commitment will drive us to achieve even more in the future. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
And thank you very much, Dr. Paltu, for setting the stage for this morning's proceedings. Our next speaker recently returned from representing Trinidad and Tobago at the United Nations COP27. Her ministry plays an important role in coordinating and reporting on our country's progress in achieving our 2030 Paris Agreement targets. We are therefore honored to have her at this morning's proceedings. Please welcome to the stage the Honorable Penelope Beckles, Minister of Planning and Development, as she delivers remarks on behalf of her ministry.
The Honourable Stuart Young, my Cabinet colleague, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Your Excellency, the Dean and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Dr. Vernon Paltu, President of National Energy, the Chairman and members of the Board of Directors of the National Energy Corporation, Ms. Karina Cockburn, Country Head for the Inter-American Development Bank in Trinidad and Tobago. Let me also acknowledge my Acting Permanent Secretary, Mr. Rick Ali, NGC Group Presidents, other specially invited guests, members of the media. Let me indicate that it is my absolute pleasure to deliver opening remarks for what I consider to be a landmark event in the future of the energy development in Trinidad and Tobago. This public launch of the roadmap for a green hydrogen economy in Trinidad and Tobago is a signature milestone in the national energy landscape, given that Trinidad and Tobago has been an oil and gas producer for more than a century and a significant producer of petrochemicals, particularly ammonia, methanol, and fertilizers. This launch comes on the heels of two important milestones for the country, the first being the recently concluded historic United Nations Climate Change Conference known as COP27 and the joint venture between methanol producer Proman and the tanker shipping company Stena Bulk. At the naming ceremony for Proman's first low-emission methanol fuel ship, the Stena Pro Patria, which took place last week, the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, sent the signal to the global energy industry that not only is clean fuel available in Trinidad and Tobago, but that the country is also poised to become a significant refueling hub for vessels using clean fuel. This is one of several activities initiated by the government to reduce our carbon emissions and enhance climate resilience. At COP27, where I had the pleasure of leading the national delegation, 195 countries reiterated the call made at COP26 in 2021 in Glasgow for the rapid scaling up of the deployment of clean power generation and energy efficiency measures, including accelerating efforts towards the phase down of unabated coal power and phase out of inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. Trinidad and Tobago, along with the Alliance of Small Island States, known as OASIS, of which we are a member, hoped for a more ambitious outcome on the need to keep the temperature goal of the Paris Agreement within the reach through accelerated mitigation action. The climate change emergency is perhaps not as stark for any state as it is for small island developing states, which face an existential threat if the rate of climate change continues on this path. As you may know, any temperature increase above 1.5 degrees Celsius will result in devastating consequences, especially for states like Trinidad and Tobago. Understanding this as a responsible member of the United Nations and a member who takes these decisions seriously, we have concluded revision of the National Climate Change Policy, which now incorporates relevant provisions of the Paris Agreement and associated decisions for low carbon and climate resilient development. As part of this pathway, there is a need to accelerate the energy transition away from fossil fuel towards a more sustainable sources such as renewable energy in keeping with the global trajectory. To do otherwise will risk investing and looking in technology that will become outdated in the not so distant future. The energy transition does not necessarily mean an automatic switch away from fossil fuels, but recognizing that any transition can be ad infinitum, there must be an end time frame. A critical part of this energy transition acceleration must of necessity also address the petrochemical industry, which constitute a major contributor to the national emissions of greenhouse gases, particularly those dependent on natural gas as a process-based feedstock such as hydrogen. The international race for green hydrogen is on, with various regions accelerating efforts to produce green hydrogen. Produced by using renewable generated electricity that splits water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen, green hydrogen holds significant promises to help meet global energy demand while contributing to the climate action goals. The demand for hydrogen reached an estimated 87 million metric tons in 2020 and is expected to grow to 500 to 680 million metric tons by the year 2050. From 2020 to 2021, the hydrogen production market was valued at $130 billion and is estimated to grow by 9.2% per year through to 2030. However, over 95% of current hydrogen production is fossil fuel based. Very little of it is green. Today, 6% of global natural gas and 2% of global coal go into hydrogen production. This is indeed currently the case of Trinidad and Tobago, which uses natural gas for hydrogen production. Green hydrogen production technologies are seeing renewed wave of interest. This is because the possible uses of hydrogen are expanding across multiple sectors, including power generation, fuel cells for electric vehicles, heavy transport such as shipping, green ammonia production for fertilizers, cleaning product refrigeration, and electricity grid stabilization. Moreover, falling renewable energy prices coupled with the dwindling costs of electrolyzers and increased efficiency due to technology improvements have increased the commercial viability of green hydrogen production. According to Bloomberg New Energy Finance, if these costs continue to fall, green hydrogen could be produced for $0.7 to $1.6 per kilogram in most parts of the world by 2050, a price competitive with natural gas. Nel, the world's largest producer and manufacturer of electrolyzers, believes that green hydrogen production cost parity or even superiority with fossil fuels could be achieved as early as 2025. The transition from natural gas to green hydrogen is therefore not cost prohibitive. The evidence and the forecasts are therefore extremely favorable and encouraging. Trinidad and Tobago is well positioned to take advantage of its industrial experience and skilled workforce to become a regional leader in the green hydrogen industry. Trinidad and Tobago is fortunate to have a very active manufacturing sector and a proactive one at that. There is already keen private sector interest in producing green hydrogen. The country is also well positioned to take advantage of the green hydrogen revolution. With institutionalized expertise and experience in the industrial sector, along with the industrial infrastructure needed, this country is strategically poised to become a regional hub for green hydrogen. I would like to add that France has supported the development of a $200 million NuGen clean hydrogen producing facility in Point Lisas, which upon completion will be the world's largest clean hydrogen producing facility of its kind, using a smart combination of solar energy and efficiency source power. This is a joint partnership between local energy company Kens J. Green Limited and French-based AVTF Energy. Local company Kenneth J. Green Limited was able to attract French-based IDF Energy through Newgen Energy Limited, which is a remarkable feat of immense potential for Trinidad and Tobago. Allow me to thank the Inter-American Development Bank, the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, and the National Energy Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago for making this launch possible. As the IDB unveils the findings of its study on green hydrogen in Trinidad and Tobago, we remain grateful for the support and contribution of our development partners in helping us to achieve our international climate change commitments. I thank you, and I urge you to enjoy the proceedings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Beckles, for communicating the plans that are in motion to help Trinidad and Tobago meet its Paris Agreement commitments and our global commitments as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the IDB, which is a key partner in this launch, is today represented by several key officials who worked closely with us at National Energy to deliver this very important roadmap. As such, it is only fitting that we hear from IDB's country head, Ms. Karina Coburn, who will provide insight into IDB's work on this project.
Good morning. Let me first acknowledge the presence of Honorable Minister Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, our very own IDB Governor, Minister of Planning and Development, the Honorable Penelope Beckles Robinson. I thought that the Chief Secretary of THA was going to be here today, but I haven't seen him yet. And fresh off the plane, Mr. Robert LeHunt, Executive Director for the Caribbean at the IDB. Dean and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Chairman and members of the Board of Directors of National Energy. I see also the Chair of NGC, who is a great friend of the bank, Dr. Joseph Khan, Dr. Paltu, National Energy, and a finalist in this year's President's Awards for Innovation and Service Excellence in the Public Sector, NGC Group Presidents, my IDB colleagues, some of whom have flown in from Washington, D.C. in a very eventful trip with flight delays and things like that, but made it. Other specially invited guests, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited to be here this morning. It is the reflection of many months of very hard work by a number of teams. For us at the IDB, it has been a pleasure to collaborate with the National Energy Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago on this landmark study and roadmap. Special thanks to Minister Young and Dr. Paltu for this partnership opportunity, and congratulations to the dedicated teams from National Energy, the IDB, and the consulting firm KBR. This morning, I'd like to take a few minutes to discuss two questions. The first is, why are we here in this moment to talk about green hydrogen? Believe it or not, green hydrogen is not a new product, and electrolysis is not a new process. However, what is new is that green hydrogen is now becoming cost-effective to produce as a result of innovations in the generation of renewable energy. In fact, over the last 10 years, there has been a decline in the cost of production, not only for solar and onshore wind generation, but also for offshore wind as well. Consequently, a new portfolio of energy products is being created, including green hydrogen, green ammonia, green methanol, and green cement. Trinidad and Tobago is well poised to take advantage of this trend. Using the existing installed capacity, know-how, and decades of experience in the oil and gas industry, it is now an attractive proposition for TNT to expand its product mix to include competitive green products, which are in high demand. We have been monitoring how other countries are positioning themselves to benefit from the green hydrogen opportunity. Some are lining up to be green hydrogen hubs. Even though they aren't producing yet, these countries are signaling that they wish to play this role based on their geographic location or existing infrastructure. Other countries are planning to be hydrogen powerhouses. These are countries which already produce renewable energy at very low cost and are seeking to be the price setters in the new market. And there are yet others which have great renewable energy potential, particularly offshore wind, and which have long experience in the petrochemical sector. So many countries are reinventing themselves to gain the first mover advantage in this race for greener fuels. The key here is that these countries are already making significant investments in technology and digitalization as they move towards green hydrogen readiness. And these are important enablers of an innovative and efficient energy sector. So it's a win-win situation for them. In the same vein, pursuing high-tech green hydrogen production can also yield significant benefits for TNT, not only by leveraging the positive externalities of innovation and digitalization for the rest of the economy, but also by helping to generate jobs and co-benefits like a sustained reduction in carbon emissions. Now to the second question. Is there a comparative advantage for Trinidad and Tobago in the green hydrogen economy? We see three important dimensions which could give TNT the edge. First, given the size of the petrochemical sector, Trinidad and Tobago already has relevant infrastructure in place. Furthermore, TNT has established itself over time as a trusted player in the international energy market and as a reliable supplier with a solid track record. The country can therefore leverage its reputation as a trusted fuel exporter with decades of experience. Second, the study demonstrates the large potential for renewable energy, including promising offshore opportunities. Like other islands which face land constraints, TNT has a great opportunity to harness the wind that blows at sea in the same way in which it has harnessed the hydrocarbon resources offshore over many years. Therefore, the country is uniquely positioned to maintain its leadership position as an innovator in the energy sector, with decarbonized and greener fuels based on offshore wind this time around. The third and last dimension relates to the country's highly skilled workforce and the large intellectual and technical capacity of its universities. The oil and gas workforce is already familiar with working offshore, and most of these skills are transferable to offshore renewable energy and production of greener fuels. Moreover, over time, TNT has built solid academic institutions and they can provide significant contributions in helping the country to develop this new industry. So I am convinced, and I hope you are too. To sum up, let me emphasize that this vision of a green hydrogen economy in Trinidad and Tobago will translate into actual projects and jobs. Right now, climate funds and concessional financing sources are looking for investment opportunities in this space, just as they were 15 years ago when solar and wind was just starting. The difference here is that TNT is not starting from scratch. The country is already in a position to harness opportunities, leverage technology, and develop goods and services made in Trinidad and Tobago to implement projects that can act as proof of concept to show the way forward. And later, this learning can be replicated to larger sized investments. This is the time. The moment for Trinidad and Tobago is now, and the journey starts today. The journey starts today with the launch of this roadmap for a green hydrogen economy, and we at the IDB are very happy and honored to have contributed to beginning this journey. Thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward to the continued partnership for the sustainable development of Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning.
Thank you, Ms. Coburn, for sharing IDB's vision for the future. In case you missed it and you need connectivity, if you do a search, you will see Hilton Meeting, and the password, just FYI, is all caps MTG1122. That's MTG, uppercase, 1122. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the main presentation on the roadmap for a green hydrogen economy in Trinidad and Tobago. To provide us with a summary of the roadmap study, we invite Mr. Augusto Bonzi, Energy Specialist at IDB, and Ms. Shamala Jugasar, Director, Strategic Solutions at KBR, to take us through the presentation.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to this meeting.
Morning, and honored to be here talking to you about the findings of this study that we've been working on for a year. So really looking forward to sharing this with you today.
So before we go through the presentation, we have prepared a very short video that we would like to share with the participants.
Let's see where the ball goes. So sorry, y'all. I hit it too hard.
That ball definitely gone.
We're not finding that no time, and look how high this gate is. You can't even climb over.
How did we build all this?
My grandpa told me more than 100 years ago, we discovered oil right here. My dad told me once there was no more oil here, they started to look for oil in the sea.
And not only oil, they also found gas.
My mom works in a company where they ship gas to different countries in boats with 3 big balloons. Oh, that's right. My dad's job is to fix those balloons when they're not working well.
My mom told me that all the schools, roads, and parks were built thanks to all this.
But you know we can't get electricity like this. Or like this.
My big brother, who attends the University of the West Indies, told me that we can use the sun and the wind to light our houses and power our cars.
Yeah, like the last time when I went to visit my cousin in England, we saw a lot of those windmills on the highway.
My sister told me that they can use sun and wind to produce hydrogen.
Let me Google what is green hydrogen.
Green hydrogen is defined as hydrogen produced by splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen using renewable electricity. such as from solar PV or wind energy.
Can we do this here?
Yes, we can. We can use all of these factories to produce green hydrogen in our country.
But can we sell this green hydrogen? Yes, we can produce a lot of it and sell it to everyone and build more roads, more parks, and more schools.
Trinidad and Tobago have the potential to develop 57 gigawatts of offshore wind generation in fixed and floating wind technologies. In Trinidad and Tobago, if we use green hydrogen, maybe we can implement it in 3 phases, with the first horizon focused on the introduction of demonstration projects. These demonstration projects will partner with the private sector in key parts of the value chain, sending a strong message of the government's expanded activities in the energy sector. Green hydrogen can be used in many products and services in Trinidad and Tobago, but also can be shipped off in tankers to other countries.
So let's do this now. My dad will be happy to know he can work on this.
I want to be a hydrogen man. And I want to put a big windmill in my backyard.
I want to be a hydrogen woman.
Well, hydrogen man and woman, can we please get my ball?
Let's go.
Let's secure our future with green
hydrogen.
Can I see my ball yet?
So Trinidad and Tobago has been a regional and an international leader in the energy space. So what this roadmap presents, it is moving forward to the next 100 years, how can the country strengthen its position and to continue its leadership in the energy sector. So we have organized this highlight of the presentation into 4 main blocks. The first one, it is what's happening in the international context, the global context, and I'm going to go through that. Then we're going to shift to what is the value proposition to the country, and my friend Shamila is going to go through that. And then towards the end, I'm going to come back about how this can be realized in Trinidad and Tobago. So looking for the global context, what we have seen is basically 4 major trends. The first one, it's about the international pledge from countries towards decarbonizing their industries and then creating the opportunity for the development of low or zero carbon products. And that is changing the energy mix with a key role for renewable energy and green hydrogen. The third thing that we have noticed is year after year, a steady reduction in the cost of renewable energy. This has happened across all countries, across all technologies. We are every time surprised with how renewable generation continues to reduce in terms of cost. And that creates the opportunity for the production of green hydrogen that if we compare 2050 to 2020, the volume, the demand for hydrogen is supposed to increase between 4 to 10 times. If you see the chart on the right side, it basically illustrates how different international agencies forecast the demand for hydrogen over the next decades. Regardless of the institution, we see a clear path in terms of higher demand for this product. And that creates the opportunity to see how are the countries positioning themselves in this new energy landscape. We know green hydrogen, the way it is now, it is difficult to ship, so most likely in the coming decade, it will have the carrier to be done through ammonia and methanol. And the kind of the big demand centers for green hydrogen, it's Europe and the Far East. These are the big demand centers. And countries are now positioning themselves to benefit from this market. And in this context, 38 countries have already developed hydrogen strategies or hydrogen roadmaps. And another 18 countries are doing that as we speak. Combined, this creates a kind of install capacity of planet electrolyzer, or about 28 gigawatts by 2030 of electrolyzers. And you see here, this happen across all the countries, all the continents. So for example, even here in Latin America, you have countries that have already prepared and made public their hydrogen strategy, something like Uruguay, Paraguay, Chile, and just yesterday, Costa Rica presented its roadmap strategy. So all of the countries are looking for that as the opportunity to position themselves in this market. But how can Trinidad position itself in this new environment? Shamila?
Thanks, Augusto. So really what we've heard from all of our guests this morning has been very much the same message. Trinidad and Tobago is in pole position. When you consider the Caribbean region, you consider Latin America, we've looked at all the flags that are there. There are countries in Latin America that have already published their hydrogen strategies, but Trinidad and Tobago has an edge. It's already got a head start. And that is why we can confidently say that it is in pole position and it can definitely achieve what we're basically presenting today and what we've set out to do. The petrochemical industry is a key aspect to this. So Trinidad is a regional leader in energy exports, in petrochemical production, and that really builds our value proposition. That is where we want to focus. Our current, so in terms of ammonia exports, Trinidad is the third largest exporter globally. And that brings a value that none of the other countries were already positioning with hydrogen strategies and positioning for global export of hydrogen. They don't bring that to the table, but Trinidad does. And that's what we need to focus on. So when we talk petrochemical industry, we're talking ammonia, we're talking methanol. And the demand that those industries currently use in Trinidad, it uses approximately 1.7 million tons per annum of grey hydrogen. So grey hydrogen being hydrogen that's produced with natural gas where we don't have any carbon capture. So 1.7 million tons per annum of grey hydrogen being used by our current petrochemical industry, that is already a significant number. It is already a captive industry that what we need to be looking at is how we develop the upstream component of the green hydrogen value chain and utilize the infrastructure that we've already there. As one of the slides that Augusto talked about earlier, the export of green hydrogen in the near and medium term will be through green products, will be as green ammonia, will be as green methanol, will be as other green hydrogen byproducts that the industry is studying, but it will not be as liquid hydrogen, at least not immediately. It will get there, the industry will catch up, there will be the technology to liquefy and to ship liquid hydrogen, but we're not there yet. But what we are ready for is to be able to start shipping green ammonia, to start shipping green methanol. So bringing all of this together, we've got the existing infrastructure, but we've also got, we've got the existing infrastructure, the petrochemical facilities, the storage and export facilities that Trinidad already possesses. Add to that the shipping network, the trade relations. That gives us a significant portion of the value chain that we can confidently say, it's here, it's available, it's for us to use to strategically position ourselves. Where we need to be looking at is how we develop the upstream and midstream components, so renewable energy and hydrogen electrolysis. But what we've identified with the findings of our study is that we can bring all of this together. We've got the potential of developing, through offshore wind, 57 gigawatts of renewable energy. No, not yet, go back. and develop 25 gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity for green hydrogen production. But all of this comes together, it comes together quite nicely, and there's a comparison that we've been doing as we've been working through this project. Trinidad, where it is currently, it's transitioning from the oil and gas sector to add a sustainable component to the economy as we see it. There's a similar island that we've been comparing Trinidad with, which is Singapore. So Singapore started as an oil trading hub, bit of a history lesson here. Started as an oil trading hub, leveraging their heritage from as an entrepot, And what they've done is they've transitioned, they've used their location where they are to use the experience and the heritage that they have to become one of the key traders of refined products in Southeast Asia. They don't have any resources themselves, but what they did was bring in the crude, refine, process it, and export refined products. From that heritage, they've transitioned to an LNG trading hub, and they've now got aspirations to be a hydrogen trading hub or to be a carbon trading hub. So there's a similarity here. Can we use this and learn from what Singapore's done and that journey that they've taken to go from positioning Trinidad as LNG trading, as a place where we produce, we store, and we export LNG and petrochemicals to one where it actually becomes a central hub for green hydrogen as well. There is a definite parallel between these two islands, and one that we feel is a definite that we need to explore, because what we want to build at the end of the day here is we want to build the Singapore of the Caribbean. That is what we're aiming for. So how do we achieve this? It all starts with renewable energy. We've got 57 gigawatts of potential in terms of what we've identified. But we didn't just focus on offshore wind here. We started this study looking at all of the potential renewable energy technologies. And I think, as been mentioned before, we are a small island. It is very much land constraint becomes a key issue. We have the potential for solar and onshore wind. We're not saying we don't. There is the potential to do solar, to do onshore wind on the island. There are several projects we're already starting to look at it, at least from the solar point of view. But when we think scalability, what will give us the scale that we can deliver 1.7 million tons per annum of green hydrogen that will just support our current petrochemical industry? So when we think scale, we need to go big, and we can't do that on land. We can't do that on an island. But the archipelago status of Trinidad and Tobago gives us significant offshore acreage to play with. We've got a lot of sea space to put up offshore wind turbines. A significant portion of it is in relatively shallow waters, which is what this map is showing you with the green patches there. It's in relatively shallow waters. We can start our development program with fixed offshore wind, which is a technology that is already mature. It is well understood. And as we develop the capability and the capacity to be able to build these offshore wind turbines and to develop these projects, we can then move to the more what is currently frontier floating and deep floating technologies. Those technologies are still at the moment in, not necessarily, they haven't been really large-scale commercialized yet, but there's still ongoing development going. But by the time we get there in 10, 15, 20-year time, floating and deep floating will be commercialized. There will be technologies that will be readily available that will help us supplement the fixed offshore wind that we will start with. So when we talk offshore wind, there is a lot happening in the industry. Whether you look at large-scale projects, you look at the investment, you look at technology, and this is here an example that we wanted to draw your attention to. It's a recent example, it's not far, it's what's happening off the coast of New York and New Jersey, but the auctions that were launched for those offshore concessions attracted in excess of $4 billion in bids. And there is the funds are available there. There are so many who are out there with funds that are ready to invest in these developments, in renewable energy, in green hydrogen. And there's no reason for us to believe that we can't have a share of that in Trinidad. In fact, we can potentially have quite a large share of it. So how do we start? Where do we start? We'll go into a little bit of a detail here. This is not something we can do in a few days. We're talking of a long-term program here. And what we've actually modeled in the work that we've done is a 30-year plus long program. It is long-term. It is something that will take us time and effort and a lot of focus to be able to achieve. And what we've done is we've said, as we start, we will start small scale because we need to learn. This is a new sector. We need to penetrate. The country needs to learn how to do this. So we'll start with small scale projects. We'll build the capability, the experience, the operational expertise, and as we learn, as we grow, the projects will then scale up in size and we'll develop larger projects, bigger projects that will be implemented. So what does that translate to? We talked about 57 gigawatts of renewable energy, translates to 25 gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity, and that translates to 4 million tons per annum of green hydrogen. So that's more than double the numbers that we had earlier. Our current industry uses 1.7 million tons per annum, and we have the potential to practically double what we are currently using, which that in itself is an amazing potential that is accessible for Trinidad. What we've also plotted on this chart that you see here is that 1.7 gray. So what we see is where we are now is that's going to stay where it is. The demand will be 1.7, but as we start introducing green hydrogen into industry, we'll see the gray curve start falling and the green curve will pick up until by the time we reach the early 2050s. We estimate that if we follow the plan, let's say here and there, we will achieve by the early 2050s the ability to be able to phase all gray out of the current petrochemical industry. Now, I will caveat here that whilst we've focused on green and we haven't presented blue here, blue hydrogen has a role to play here. There is no reason why blue hydrogen cannot work in parallel with green as a transition pathway. So what that would mean is we are able to reduce our green curve a lot earlier than what we are showing here, because we can introduce blue as a pathway in the middle. So the gray curve drops a lot quicker, the blue picks up, and then the green comes a little bit later, because there is a lot more foundational work that we need to do in order to bring green hydrogen to where we need it to be. So the economics of it, how much is this going to cost us, and what are we looking at? So what we've modeled here, what you're seeing here, is over the lifetime, so the same period of 2030 for about 30 plus years, we've done a cost modeling of where does the levelized cost of hydrogen sit. So levelized cost of hydrogen actually means so levelized cost of hydrogen is the lifetime cost of hydrogen per kilo of hydrogen that we're producing. So the lifetime cost of it, meaning that it is not just the cost of setting up the assets, so the capex, but also the cost of operating and maintaining the assets, the OPEX side of things. And what we've presented here is a range of production costs. So we see it, the reason why we see it as a range is there are several internal and external levers that will impact the price that we can deliver. And a lot of that, it's really how we play with these levers and which levers we activate and in what sequence will drive how low we can get that price. But we do have the potential to be able to reduce the price to the lower level that we are showing here. By levers, I mean, so for example, if we take external levers, it's the cost of technology. We've modeled a certain curve for technology reduction, but we've seen what's happened in the last 10 years. No one predicted how quickly solar PV will actually reduce in prices. So the same might happen for offshore wind as well as the take-up increases globally. So so that's an example of an external lever. An example of an internal lever would be the regulatory framework, the incentives that we set up internally to be able to attract the foreign investment. The setting up a local supply chain, for example. So what we're talking here in the scale that we're talking, wouldn't it be amazing if we can actually get local offshore wind turbine, not saying we're going to manufacture the blades in Trinidad, but the assembly of it. We can take the expertise from the offshore industry, bring that together to now start looking at how do we put together offshore wind turbines, the installation of it. So getting that supply chain established locally, that will drive down our costs. But this is cost of green hydrogen, but that's not really what we want to focus on. What we want to focus on is the cost of green ammonia, and that's where the competitiveness comes in. As we've been talking about, hydrogen now, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, will not be traded as hydrogen. It will be traded as green ammonia, green methanol, or other green byproducts. And what we're showing here is the potential for what green ammonia could be. Again, shows us a range. The same internal versus external levers apply because this is driven by the cost of hydrogen production. It is the levelized cost of ammonia, so considers both the capex and OPEX elements of it. But what it shows is that we have got a really good potential to be able to achieve prices of ammonia that is competitive, that is definitely competitive with what ammonia is trading at today, and even to a level of competitiveness with what ammonia was trading at a couple of years before. So green ammonia isn't this almost, yeah, we are not gonna, who's gonna pay for that, and it's too expensive and there's no market for it. With the way things are going at the moment, there is definitely a market for it, and Trinidad has definitely got a space in that competitive landscape. So at this point, I'll hand back to Augusto, and he'll talk us through how we realize this hydrogen economy.
Thank you, Shamila. So what we thought is basically the study indicates the following way. You start small, you think big, and you move fast. So in that sense, the study indicates the opportunity to phase that vision in 3 parts, which we call Horizon 1, Horizon 2, and Horizon 3. On Horizon 1, which is very much putting actual projects on the ground so that this can be visible and tangible results, and then you learn by doing it. At the same time, in this phase of Horizon 1, you start laying out the foundation to basically harness the benefit of Horizon 2 and 3. And Horizon 2, you already introduce the generation of offshore wind. At the same time, you start already collecting the benefits from low-cost, low-carbon products. And you also lay out the foundation for the full deployment in Horizon 3. So we want to acknowledge that this will not be done overnight, but a plan, it's basically, we need to start, and by starting that, all the things will fall into place in the next 2 horizons. So going back to the Horizon 1, and then what will be typical demonstration projects in Trinidad and Tobago? So we have reviewed the whole value chain from upstream, midstream, and downstream. And in the publication, there are a lot of details about those specific demonstration projects. But what the study indicates and suggests, it is to identify projects which are scalable, replicable, and also it creates the whole learning for the country on these new technologies. So the publication has all the details about this, but by the end of the day is a portfolio of projects that it's up to the government to decide which ones to prioritize in this Horizon 1. We also have described what are the key things that need to be in place in this Horizon 1, and this is organized in two parts. One, it is, as you can see in the bottom, which we call the enabling framework, and then on the top part, it's all about the specific projects. And I'm not going to read all of that, but I would like to highlight 2 aspects of that chart. The first one, as we have seen in previous examples, and also it is what other countries are leading, this whole development, it is for the government to set up the right policies, but investments are driven by the private sector. In that sense, we put there a kind of activity in the enabling framework at the bottom to establish a PPP framework so that the country can develop green hydrogen. So that is a key component on the regulatory framework for the next 5 years. At the same time, if we want to really go big on offshore wind, we need to do proper wind assessment. So there is also a proposal that the government should initiate a kind of a wider wind resource assessment program, the RAP, and then leverage that information in terms of attracting private sector in the future. And we understand there are already some initiatives at the country level on this wind measurement, and we should basically align and identify all the synergies so that this will become one single project moving forward for the RAP for the government. So what the next steps that the study indicates, and there are basically 4. One, it is a kind of an internal discussion within the members of the government. So policymakers reviewing that and making decisions in terms of the timing, the scope, and how to move forward. So that is very clearly established on the report for the national policymakers to work on it. The second one, it is about designing the demonstration projects, already engaging the private sector. So the private sector can be a good source of ideas, of capital, technology, and by the end of the day, job generation. So this has to be a joint effort, public and private. As I said before, the third item, it's all about developing the institutional and the regulatory framework for PPP arrangements, and we understand Trinidad already has a lot of experience on that, so we should build on what has been the country experience. And last but not least, on item number 4, it's really about implementing the projects. It's important to have things delivered on the ground that has visibility, and the country can benefit from that. So to finalize, what we have seen, it is basically a window of opportunity coming up for Trinidad and Tobago. We see this as a starting point today, and we really think it's a very unique opportunity that Trinidad should harness and should benefit from that. Thank you very much for your attention. So before we move to the next section, we said in the beginning we wanted to do this in a very interactive way.
Sorry.
So I would ask you kindly to get your mobile phones, and there should be on the table a QR code, and we are also going to get that on the screen, and that is very much about getting a little bit of feedback from the participants today. So you can do two ways. Either you do www.menti.com, and then you just use those 8-digit codes, or you can get the QR code on your camera. And let me give you 1 minute on that. We also have the QR code on the tables to facilitate. And we have basically 4 questions. And the first question is very much a warm-up question. So, and the question tries to answer the following one. How many large-scale hydrogen projects have already been announced for startup by 2030? So globally, how many projects? And you can see here, it's a very dynamic place, so we are not trying to influence the result, but people can keep voting, and the results are displayed here. So let's wait a few more minutes so that we get more participants. How many large-scale hydrogen projects have been announced to start up by 2030? Globally, all the regions, all the countries. So letter A, which is the first answer, 15 projects. Letter B, 88. Letter C, 125. Letter D, 350. And last letter E, 680. So voting is going on, and that was very much a warm-up question, so I think we can freeze that warm-up question, and the correct answer is letter E. So far, according to the Global Hydrogen Council, 680 projects have been announced worldwide for startup by 2030.
An interesting statistics is also, this is asking large-scale hydrogen projects, but the IEA database that lists every project that's announced for hydrogen, whether small or large scale, there's in excess of 10,000 projects listed globally. So there's a massive push in this current sector at the moment.
Okay, so that was basically for us to get familiar with the tool and also to illustrate how dynamic this environment is and how multiple countries are trying to get into this market. So let's now go to the first question that will be very important to get feedback from the participants. And the question is, what do you consider the strongest competitive advantage that Trinidad and Tobago has for the production of green hydrogen? So letter A, it's about our existing international, commercial, and treaty agreements. Letter B, it's about our petrochemical industry and existing infrastructure. And letter C, it's all about the whole potential for renewable energy. Letter D, it's about our current business environment, which is the easiness of doing business. And different from the previous question, here we don't have right or wrong. This is basically the perception from the participants on what do we see the strongest competitive advantage for the country. And I can see a very large concentration of responses on item B, which is the petrochemical industry and the existing infrastructure. And I think that is consistent with what Sharmila said in the beginning about the legacy that Trinidad and Tobago brings in terms of not starting from zero, but already starting with a very well infrastructure and petrochemical sector.
It's good to know that everyone's paying attention. Thank you.
So thank you. Let me shift back to Sharmila for the next two questions.
Third question, how fast should Trinidad and Tobago advance the deployment of green hydrogen demonstration projects in the country? So that's essentially wanting to assess what is your feeling, what is your sense of urgency behind how quickly do we need to do this? Is it too early? Do we need to wait until technology matures further? Do we need to do more studies? Do we need more desktop work similar to what we've been doing? Do we go ahead but be prudent? Let's think this through before we actually do something. Or it's a burning platform that we need to address and we need to advance now. Let's see whether you were paying attention.
And again, there is no right or wrong here. It's basically what is your perception of the speed of implementation. And it is about the pace of how we should think. And Sharmila, if you can just read the...
So, fully agree, definitely. We need to advance fast. It is a burning platform. There is a sense for urgency. And there's a really good value proposition for Trinidad to position itself as a leader in this space, to build on the heritage that is already there and to grow from that. Should we get to the next question? Okay, so what are the main potential benefits of expanding the portfolio of energy products in Trinidad with the production of green hydrogen? So are we looking at generating local jobs and employment, expanding the revenue stream, accelerating energy transition, introducing new technologies, or all of the above? Yay! Again, a win.
Larger symmetry.
So with that, it's the end of our survey, so that very grateful for your contribution there. This was really good, just to know that essentially what we are saying, you are a receptive audience, you've listened and you agree with what we're saying, which is half the battle already. Now we actually need to figure out how we are going to do this, but tiny little steps at a time. So over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharmila. So just to finalize our session, we wanted to highlight that this is the report done in collaboration with National Energy. It will be available as we finish the session today. And it has all the details that we have spoken before, but also a lot of more technical and quantitative data here. And I will really encourage you to read, to participate, and to engage in this journey. Thank you very much.
Roadmap for a green hydrogen future. And we say thank you to Augusto Bonzi of the IDB and Sharmila Jugasar of KBR for that very comprehensive presentation. And as Augusto said, copies of the roadmap will be provided to each of you at the end of today's proceedings. And this roadmap report is also available to the public via National Energy's and IDB's websites. I understand the Honorable Farley Chavez Augustin, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, has joined us. Thank you for being here, sir. Well, our next speaker is our energy sector's highest ambassador. promoting Trinidad and Tobago's efforts to achieving a decarbonized economy. The delivery of this roadmap would not be a reality without the efforts of his team at the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, and of course his continuous support to national energy. Ladies and gentlemen, to deliver today's feature address, we invite to the stage the Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister.
Good morning to my cabinet colleague, the Honorable Penelope Beckles-Robinson, Minister of Planning and Development, to the Honorable Farley Chavez Agustin, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, to Dean and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Chairman and members of the Board of National Energy, to Dr. Vernon Paltu, President of National Energy, to Ms. Karina Cockburn, Country Head for the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, in Trinidad and Tobago, NGC Group Presidents, other specially invited guests, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I was reflecting as I sat there that for the last 3 weeks, I calculated I've been on about 18 platforms with very different audiences. So you all will excuse me as I kind of come back to reality to discuss national agenda and energy matters. And then I was also reflecting in my previous life as an attorney at law, one of the things I would have said after Karina spoke, quite simply, is stand up and say, I concur, because she gave an excellent presentation and was a great ambassador for Trinidad and Tobago. But then coming out of our quiz session a short while ago, which took me a bit by surprise, but was a good interaction, I think you all have heard it all this morning. And it makes my task a bit more difficult, but a bit easier as well. The point is, Trinidad and Tobago is well poised. We have been very, very blessed in what we have here in Trinidad and Tobago. And that is part of the messaging I've been going all over the world with in the last 11 months, and there has been great reception. You've heard of all of the benefits, so let's start with what are some of the infrastructure that currently exists that, quite frankly, none of the other countries in the region have anything close to. You start with Point Lisas. And I was asking Dr. Paltu, how long is it that we've had Point Lisas put down? Because I hear all of these stories continuously from the Honorable Prime Minister and others who actually built Point Lisas. And he confirmed that it started in 1979. So you do the math. We have had Point Lisas and a gas-based industry here in Trinidad and Tobago for well over 40 years. That infrastructure is what poises us perfectly at this juncture. And my message is the government of Trinidad and Tobago is ready to go. Hydrogen is going to be the future, but as you heard the technical speakers before me say, it is not in a platform, it is not in a molecular substance that is easy to transport. So you look at what can you transport hydrogen with, and immediately ammonia and methanol. And I'd like to correct respectfully one of the previous speakers. Trinidad and Tobago, I haven't seen the 2022 results, right? But in 2021, we were the second largest exporter of ammonia in the world. So you need ammonia and methanol as the current platforms to transport hydrogen. Trinidad and Tobago currently produces, we have a capacity to produce about 2 million tons of hydrogen a year. That's how much we use, but as the previous speaker said, due to some of our issues in the energy sector, i.e. we don't have sufficient gas to utilize all of our capacity, we are utilizing about 1.7 million tons a year of gray hydrogen. There is an intervening process, and that is blue. And you get confused with all of these colors. So gray, blue, green. The blue is something we're focusing on as well as the green. The blue, again, we are perfectly poised in Trinidad and Tobago to proceed immediately into that, and that is what I've been trying to push as I talk to the stakeholders at Point Lisas. The blue is going to come about by capturing the carbon. So carbon capture, sequestration, and utilization. And part of my message here today is we're not moving quickly enough. Trinidad and Tobago, 40 years ago, took the risk. 40 years ago when we built Point Lisas, and then about 30 years ago when we decided to go with a gas-based industry, we were global energy leaders. And I can tell all of you here in the room, many of you who know it already, Trinidad and Tobago is globally respected when we stand up and speak in any global energy forum, because we haven't only talked it, we have done it. And that is the message here today on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. The vision is we must stay globally competitive. And the time to take the decisions are now. In fact, left up to me, and I see my permanent secretary here, the permanent secretary from the Ministry of Energy, so you'll allow me to acknowledge her, and others from the Ministry of Energy, as they can attest it, we are moving too slowly. We have the competitive advantage here now that others don't have, because some of the countries you all have named do not have the infrastructure. We have the whole value chain here in Trinidad and Tobago. So the message from the government is, we are ready now. Let's get it done. You need only have been here in the last 72 plus hours to see some of the effects of the global climate change. You need only turn on your televisions, read on your devices, on social media. You would have seen in the past week flooding in Saudi Arabia, and serious flooding in Saudi Arabia. You'd have seen similar land slippage taking place all over the world that in the last couple decades haven't had it. The global climate change is affecting us now, and Trinidad and Tobago will play its part in ensuring that as we continue with a hydrocarbon-based economy, we will work with our stakeholders on the carbon capture, sequestration, and utilization, which hopefully, I'm hoping to get the policy soon, because to me, the real decision to be made there is what are the incentives and how does the regulatory framework work to make that happen. And there is absolutely no roadmap that says you have to have either green or blue. So we must go the route of both blue and green. I am thrilled at the work that Karina and NEC have done over the last year and a half, and all of the advisors and consultants. We need to move quicker. So I was looking at your quiz to see how people were answering, and I intentionally didn't participate because I wanted to see what the audience said. We need to move now. So as I was telling Dr. Paltu, we need to move from the talk. That's one of the things that frustrates me. We talk and we sit and we meet with consultants and we do all these feasibility studies. If we were basing all of our decision making on that, we know it can work, we know we have the infrastructure, we know we have the global competitive advantages. We have international shipping of these products taking place here. Singapore has that. They've done it efficiently, they're a hub. But we have the rest of the value chain here. And that is the message. As we sat and we've just recently been working hard, I see some of the members here negotiating the future of our LNG. The message is that the government is not running one path. We're not running one track. I always smile when people say, well, you have to decide on wind. No, you don't need to decide on wind. We're about to announce as well a massive solar project. That's the first step. But what says that you don't have solar and wind going at the same time? So I was asking Dr. Paltu and NEC, let's get it done. Let's start with the onshore wind, because the truth is, if you're going to have a green economy, and we're really going to have green ammonia and green methanol, because of our limited land space, we need to go offshore wind. And that is what is going to provide us with that input into this green hydrogen via green ammonia, green methanol. We have the players here. We have the international players here in methanol and ammonia in our LNG. So Trinidad and Tobago, if we don't grasp the opportunities now, then that's on us. We've done it decades ago, and we've been at the forefront. We've led globally, and we must do it again. So Karina, Dr. Paltu, get on with it. Don't come and tell me about waiting on another feasibility study, etc. And the answer is yes, we can fabricate as much as is possible of these wind turbines and the huge pillars that the blades go on in Trinidad, and we can do it offshore. We have time and time again here fabricated offshore platforms. Recently, I was launching an offshore platform. I won't call their name here, but their whole platform, all of the energy that needs to be generated is either wind or solar, and it was built here in Trinidad and Tobago. So every part of the value, well, not every part, let me not get overboard. That's the other part of me when I'm on a different platform, right? We have the ability here in Trinidad and Tobago, I believe that, for us to get into the value chain and to do as much of it as possible. And you are going to see in the next 12 months, God willing, a lot of what we've been speaking about come to fruition. And I want, whilst that is going on, for these things to follow. So I want Trinidad and Tobago to be able to see the wind turbines go up. And that is a start of the process. We have the ammonia, we have the methanol producers here. We have Heritage who are waiting to get the carbon and to get it into the fields to increase their production. So the opportunities are here, Trinidad and Tobago. We need to lead from in front once again. It is something we have done, and it is something I am asking us in the energy sector to once again take that leap of faith and do it. Because by the time, as we were listening to the last speakers, the experts talk about the different phases and when should you wait, and should you wait to see the technology improve. I can tell you, for example, with solar, we've been negotiating a solar project over the last 2 years. And to show you how volatile it is, yes, the technology improved, the costs went down, but then the 24th of February took place in the world. And the Russia-Ukraine effects shot up prices globally, including the costs of solar. So it is a lesson to us. Believe in ourselves once again and be the global leaders. I am not going to be around in 2050, and good luck to those who are. But if we take the decisions now and we implement it, in 2050, the conversation will be, okay, what else do we now do to remain the global leaders? And I can tell you that the government has not been sitting quietly and waiting for things to happen. That is not our style. It's certainly not my style. So whilst we've been discussing the hydrogen, we've been discussing the increased use of renewables, we've been discussing the carbon capture, sequestration, and utilization for a blue and green economy, we have also been working. I'm smiling, as for the last 2 days, my phone has been lighting up with every article that is possible out there about things taking place in Washington and with our neighbors. But for those of you who have been listening as to what we've been doing in the past year, the government has been working, and there's going to be more to come. Because natural gas, and I'll stop on this note because I have to make the plug, natural gas is going to be the fossil fuel that carries us well into the future. Because hydrogen, whilst it has been around, and as we go to blue and green, is not going to just miraculously take over the environment. And what we must do here in Trinidad and Tobago is balance it all and get the right mixes. And it is simple. So we just have to take the decisions. And IDB, if you all are ready to do the journey with us, we are ready. But I'm going to tell you all here, there are many people out there that are ready, as you were saying, all of the funds to get on with it. You all have been a partner of ours for a very long time. Let's not delay it with bureaucracy and all of the other things. Let's just implement it and get on with it and continue to be a global leader in the energy industry. So I have no quiz for you all at the end. And I will end without telling you all the phrases that I've been using in the last 3 weeks at these 18+ meetings. But I end with a message that Trinidad and Tobago is very willing, very ready. We're not only open for business, we are doing business, and the ship is leaving the harbor. And it's up to all of you investors who have taken the decisions to invest here in Trinidad and Tobago, in the upstream, in the LNG, in the methanol, in the ammonia, in the fertilizer, and even now on the shipping side. Place your bets on Trinidad and Tobago. We might be in the World Cup now, but we are going to take this global energy transition forward, and I guarantee you, once you, the leadership in this room, make the right decisions and move to implementation, we're going to continue to hold that spot. So, thank you all very much for your attention here this morning, and I look forward to us starting a pilot project whilst the big projects are coming right behind as we move to put into our energy sector both blue hydrogen as well as green hydrogen, and as we do our part to clean up the environment so we can also be part of the global fight against climate change. Thank you all very much for your attention this morning, and do have a pleasant rest of your day.
And thank you very much, Minister Young, for highlighting your ministry's undertakings geared towards decarbonizing the energy industry. Nothing like now. Get it done. Ladies and gentlemen, our event is done. Thank you for allowing me to guide you through this morning's proceedings and for being a most receptive audience. I now invite you to partake in some light refreshments before you depart the premises. Safe travels, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you once again.